The Color of the Atmosphere by Leonardo da Vinci. I say that the blue which is seen in the atmosphere is not its own color, but is caused by the heated moisture having evaporated into the most minute imperceptible particles, which the beams of the solar rays attract and cause to seem luminous against the deep, intense darkness of the region of fire that forms a covering above them. And this may be seen, as I myself saw it, by anyone who ascends Monte Rosa, a peak of the chain of Alps that divides France from Italy, at whose base spring the 4 rivers which flow as many different ways and water all Europe, and there is no other mountain that has its base at so great an elevation. This mountain towers to so great a height as almost to pass above all the clouds, and snow seldom falls there, but only hail in summer when the clouds are at their greatest height. And there this hail accumulates, so that if it were not for the infrequency of the clouds thus rising and discharging themselves, which does not happen twice in an age, there would be an enormous mass of ice there, built up by the various layers of the hail, and this I found very thick in the middle of July. And I saw the atmosphere dark overhead, and the rays of the sun striking the mountains had far more brightness than in the plains below, because less thickness of atmosphere lay between the summit of this mountain and the sun. As a further example of the color of the atmosphere, we may take the case of the smoke produced by old dry wood, for as it comes out of the chimneys it seems to be a pronounced blue when seen between the eye and a dark space. But as it rises higher and comes between the eye and the luminous atmosphere, it turns immediately to an ashen gray hue, and this comes to pass because it no longer has darkness beyond it, but in place of this the luminous atmosphere. But if this smoke comes from new green wood, then it will not assume a blue color, because, as it is not transparent and it is heavily charged with moisture, it will have the effect of a dense cloud, which takes definite lights and shadows as though it were a solid body. The same is true of the atmosphere, which excessive moisture renders white, while little moisture acted upon by heat causes it to be dark and of a dark blue color. And this is sufficient as regards the definition of the color of the atmosphere, although one may also say that if the atmosphere had this transparent blue as its natural color, it would follow that wherever a greater quantity of atmosphere came between the eye and the fiery element, it would appear of a deeper shade of blue, as is seen with blue glass and with sapphires, which appear darker in proportion as they are thicker. The atmosphere, under these conditions, acts in exactly the opposite way, since where a greater quantity of it comes between the eye and the sphere of fire, there it is seen much whiter, and this happens towards the horizon, and in proportion as a lesser amount of atmosphere comes between the eye and the sphere of fire. Of so much the deeper blue does it appear, even when we are in the low plains. It follows, therefore, from what I say, that the atmosphere acquires its blueness from the particles of moisture which catch the luminous rays of the sun. We may also observe the difference between the atoms of dust and those of smoke seen in the sun's rays as they pass through the chinks of the walls in dark rooms, that the one seems the color of ashes, and the other, the thin smoke, seems of a most beautiful blue. We may see also in the dark shadows of mountains far from the eye that the atmosphere which is between the eye and these shadows will appear very blue, and in the portion of these mountains which is in light, it will not vary much from its first color. But whoever would see a final proof should stain a board with various different colors, among which he should include a very strong black, and then over them all he should lay a thin, transparent white, and he will then perceive that the luster of the white will nowhere display a more beautiful blue than over the black, but it must be very thin and finely ground. I don't know. I suppose we could do another one. Little bonus for anybody who is actually watching this. Smoke is swift at its beginning and becomes slower at every stage of its ascent. because it becomes colder and heavier owing to the fact that a great part of it is condensed through the parts striking against each other and being pressed together and made to adhere one to another. And water does the same, for it is swift at the beginning of its movement.